Hello friends, I'm Rosa, welcome to the channel. So today we are talking about short, quick, fast, very easy to read books that I would recommend if you're missing just a couple of books to reach your reading goal for 2022. So I have 10. I loved all of these books that we're talking about today. So we're not going to talk about opinions as much. You can always find my detailed opinions of the books if you watch my wrap-ups. So I am just going to tell you what they're about, the genres, and if I can remember maybe how many pages there are in them, but we'll see about that one. And also, if you want to check out any of these books, I will make sure to link to them in the description box. You can find both links to them on Book Depository, but also on Amazon. And if you want to check the synopsis and stuff, you can find, more information on them over there. So without further ado, let's get started talking about the first one, which is one that I've raved about on the channel so much because I really truly love this book. It's Fable by Adrienne Young. This is young adult, technically fantasy. It is fantasy. I was gonna say technically also includes magic. There's not a lot of it, just a little bit kind of. But we also have to do with pirates, and it's a bit of an adventure book as well. So in this book, we follow Fable, who is the daughter of he's a major, I think you could call him a pirate, but he's also a tradesman, and he's kind of just dumped Fable on this island years ago because he thinks that Fable needs to be able to care for herself. She has to prove something to him. So for the past couple of years, Fable has basically only been focused on finding a way off of this island so that she can prove herself and her abilities and everything else to her father. And so to get off the island, she gets the help of a guy called West and his crew and sets off to find her father because she finally got off the island. But there's a lot of issues that get in the way, and it's a whole lot more than that because all the traders might have problems with each other and there might be a lot of competition and stuff. Let's just say it's not easy for Fable to even just get to her father. So that is pretty much what Fable is about. I love this, would highly recommend it. It's the perfect quick read. There's also a sequel. You can read this in one sitting, read the sequel in another sitting. You're covered, okay, I promise. And you're gonna love Fable because she's awesome. Why is that there? Next up, I have a young adult contemporary romance, and it's Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. And this is by Benjamin Alire Saenz. I do not know how to pronounce his last name. No clue. But in this book, we follow two boys who are kind of just trying to find their place in the world, trying to get to know themselves better. They are the best of friends, and you follow them throughout growing up. So you follow them from when they're a little bit younger, and then them getting to know each other, and then also, just through a couple of years. It's not just right now, you know what I mean. Oh, I think this book actually also takes place in the 1980s, I think. But this is a very cute story about two boys who just are trying to figure out their identity in the world. And also about them getting to know each other and becoming friends and seeing this friendship grow as well. So I read this during a readathon. It was a perfect quick read. I swear you can read this in a couple of hours because a lot of the pages are basically stuff like this. They have a very quick back and forth kind of chemistry. Their conversations are basically just very short answers to each other all the time. So it's a very quick read, but it's lovely, it's cute, it's heartwarming, it's also a little bit heartbreaking. It's the perfect quick and easy read if you want a contemporary at least. Then I have an adult fantasy for you, and that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is a vampire story. It is because of that a fantasy, but it's not so much about how vampires work per se. It doesn't really give you a lot of information on that. And it's also sort of a romance, although I'm having a hard time calling it a romance because it's about an abusive relationship. Oh, and most importantly, it's a retelling of Count Dracula and his wives. So in this book, instead of following Count Dracula, we follow one of his wives, his first one, whose name I've forgotten at this very moment. Constanta. That does not sound right, but okay. I mean, my pronunciation of it. I'm sure the name is right. So it's basically her writing almost like a letter to Dracula, who's funny enough never actually named. He's always just called you. And it's basically about, we follow them throughout the years, throughout centuries of them just being together, and also We get an insight into the relationship. We stay with them as he's introducing more people into this relationship. And it's very touching, but in like a very heartbreaking kind of way. So I would definitely, if you're a little bit sensitive to certain subjects, look up on some trigger warnings for this one because there's a lot of heavy stuff in it. But it's very flowy, it's very beautiful, and once you start reading this, you're gonna have a hard time putting it down. Plus, it's not a very long read either. Some of the pages don't really have a lot on them either, so this is definitely a quick read, and it'll like hold on to you and you won't want to let it go. So, would highly recommend if you're looking for something like that. Also, just a good vampire book. So, a very beautiful, tragic vampire book. Like when I say beautiful about this book, I mean the way that S.T. Gibson wrote it. I just think it has it's just very pleasant. Like the content, not so much, but like the way that it's written, it's just very pleasant. So I think my rule for this video was that I was gonna try to keep every book under 350 pages, and I almost managed. This one isn't under 350 pages, but it's about 370 or so. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, another YA fantasy. We have to do with Fae this time, and there's also a bully romance in it. We follow Jude, who has ended up in Fairy, which is where the Fae live, after she was taken there along with her siblings, so her twin sister and also her older sister, because her older sister is actually the daughter of her mom, but then her father is a Fae, and he's like, you gotta come with me to Fairy, so he basically just took them. Jude is not having an easy time in Fairy. There's a lot of Fae that are not very nice to humans living there, and Jude is just kind of like, enough is enough. I'm gonna fight back. If they're gonna treat me like this, I will treat them worse. And so aside from that, there's also another plot, because there's actually a lot of court intrigue in this book. We don't just follow Jude and the guy whose name is Carden. There's also a lot about who's next in line and stuff like that. So, but this was another one that I had a hard time putting down when I was reading it because it was very fast paced. So I think you could go into this and easily read it in just like maybe not a couple of hours, maybe a little bit more than a couple of hours, but you could definitely easily read it in one sitting. Plus it also has a couple of sequels. I have not read those yet, so I can't speak on them, but I'm expecting them to be good because this was actually surprisingly good to me. I thought it was going to be sappy and it wasn't, and I love Jude and would recommend as a quick and easy read. Another kind of Fae book actually is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. We don't really fully have with Fae, I mean they are in the book, but it's hard to explain without spoiling anything, so I'm not gonna say. But this is another YA fantasy with a sprinkle of romance, kind of horror vibes now and then, and paranormal stuff, I wanna say. We follow our lead girl who has two brothers. They're orphans, they've been taking care of each other and the house that they live in, but things are very rough for them. Plus they also live right next to the forest where there's some kind of curse maybe cast on this forest, which causes people who die in the forest to actually come back alive. Like, they're the bone houses. Their skeletons come back and they attack people and stuff. So a guy comes into town one day and things start to go extra crazy in the town. Like, the bone houses will not stop attacking. So him and our lead girl set out on a journey to figure out how they can stop the bone houses from attacking all the time. Like, they need to put a stop to this. And that's what The Bone Houses is about. I think I read this during a readathon too, actually. But it was really, really good. It was, like, vibes-wise, it's not full-on horror, but it does have that horror vibe to it at times. So it's a bit mysterious as well, and I think that will keep you interested in reading this very, very quickly. Plus, it's not the longest book, and YA books often don't have a lot of text per page, so you should also easily be able to read this in one sitting, I think. But I think that's kind of a given with all the books that I chose to go with today, so... Next up, I have another YA book. The vast majority of books on this list are actually YA, but it's because they're generally, like, very quick reads. Unless they're, like, 500 to 600 pages long, you know? So I have Cemetery Boys by Adrian Thomas for you. I read this recently and I really enjoyed it. We follow Yadriel, who is doing everything he can to prove to his family that he is a brujo and not a bruja. But Yadriel is trans and his family is kind of having a hard time accepting that. So he takes it upon himself to kind of figure out how he can go about proving this to his families. One evening though, one of his cousins end up dying. So what's important about the brujegs is that they can see spirits. The male brujo are supposed to be able to summon spirits and then help them pass on, whereas the bruja have healing powers. But one night his cousin Miguel ends up dying, and Yadriel is like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity. If I manage to summon him and actually help him pass over properly, I can prove to my family that I am a brujo. But as he's doing this ritual to try and summon Miguel, he ends up summoning Julian instead. Definitely not Miguel. And Julian is a little bit of a free spirit. He's very much like, listen, I gotta do this and this and that before I can pass over, and you gotta help me with this. But after we do this, I will let you help me pass over. As they work on these different things though, secrets start to come to light in this community, and Yadriel and Julian are also getting a little bit closer and finding it very hard to let each other go. So YA fantasy romance with a lot of magic in there and also paranormal vibes. I will say at times horror vibes, but not like a whole lot of it. And it's very touching. I really enjoyed it, and I think even if you're not looking for a short book, you should read this anyway because it's very cute. It was very interesting to learn about Brujex as well, because I don't really know much about this culture. It's not one that is very present in my country. I don't know if I can phrase this. There's not a whole lot of it in my country. It's very interesting reading about something that's so foreign to me, and I would recommend it if you're looking for a quick read before the year is over. I'm gonna talk about one that I don't have that I feel like I should have mentioned after Fable. I don't have it, I've read it, but I don't have it as a physical copy, and it's Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller, which is also about pirates. It's YA fantasy with magic in there and also an enemies to lovers romance. We follow Alosa, who is the daughter of the Pirate King. He has a lot of power in the pirate community, if you will. So she's often sent out on different jobs by her father, and as we start the book, she has been sent off to collect an item from a very specific ship. So she essentially lets herself get taken as a prisoner to get on board this ship so that she can search it. Despite actually being imprisoned in a cell on the ship, she somehow manages. But unfortunately for her, she's having a very hard time finding this item, and the captain's best mate, or whatever that's called, the second in rank, who's also his brother, keeps getting in the way, which is super annoying for Alosa, but at the same time, he's also kind of cute. And this was just like a very fast-paced, fun. I might also be biased because I love enemies to lovers, but it was just a very fast, fun, like classic YA book, and I would highly recommend it. I will be reading the sequel in December because I'm desperate to read it at this point. So, Daughter of the Pirate King. Then we have another kind of horror book actually. It's House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. For some reason I always want to call this House of Holland. It's annoying. But this book is YA, it is fantasy and also horror. We follow three sisters who years ago were in Edinburgh with their family and disappeared. A month later they returned though, but they just happened to be a little bit different. And so throughout the years, at least two of the sisters, because the three sisters ended up becoming quite famous because of this, but two of the sisters have kind of tried to hold on to this fame, especially one of them. She's like a fashion icon, a designer, a model. The other one plays music. And then we have Iris, I think is the youngest one. Iris, who basically just doesn't want to do the fame thing. She just wants to be normal. She just wants to go to school. One day though, Gray, the oldest sister, goes missing, and Vivi and Iris are very much doubting if this was on purpose, so they decide to figure out what happened to Gray. Because there are some mysterious circumstances to her disappearance as well. And so that is what this book is about. Just be aware that if you go into this, it might be a little bit like body horror-ish at times. A little bit gory as well, so just be aware of that. It's a fun read though, very fascinating. Loved the vibes. I would actually reread this maybe for next October or something. I should keep that in mind. And it's also, I just cracked a nail. You just did that, okay. And it's also extremely short, because I think it's actually less than 300 pages. It's 292, so yes. House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. And so we're at the last two books First off, we're talking about yet another YA fantasy. It is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. And in this book, we follow Mina. I think her name is Mina. Yes, Mina, whose brother is Shim Chung, and she is supposed to be sacrificed to the sea god because it is said that the sea god is basically causing these storms that are ravaging Mina's country or Mina's lands, like where her people live. And so every year they've been sacrificing a girl to the sea god by throwing them into the sea in hopes of the storms finally stopping. So this year it's supposed to be Shim Chung, Mina's brother's fiance. However, Mina knows that her brother will be heartbroken if Shim Chung is sacrificed. So on the night that they're supposed to do the sacrifice, Mina decides to take her spot and jumps into the sea herself. And so she ends up in the, basically what looks like, it's a bit of a sea underworld, if you will. There's a lot of spirits, there's a lot of stuff going on. She finds out that the sea god is actually asleep. And so while she's there, she sets it upon herself that she needs to figure out how she can awaken the sea god, so that way the storms can finally stop. There's also a sprinkle of romance in this, and it is also a retelling of the Legend of Shim Chung, which is a Korean story, yes. And it's cute, it's a fast read, it's a little bit confusing at times, do pay attention, but it's very cute. I would give this a reread, to be honest, because I read it during a readathon and I was a little bit sleepy when I read it, so maybe that's why I thought it was a little bit confusing, but it's very cute and definitely worth a read. And so that brings us to the last book, which is Nettle Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is like an extremely short book, I think. It's very, very small. You will fly through this book. It's about 310 pages, but she's tiny. But this is an adult horror fantasy, and in this book we follow a younger sister. She has two big sisters that both have been taken to the king of this country, who seems to be not a very good king and not a very good person. No one really knows what's truly happened to the older sister, but as the middle sister of these three ends up marrying him, our lead girl finds out that her sister's situation in this marriage is basically like horrible. It's horrific. So she sets out to find out a way that she can bring down the king so that she can free her sister. And so with the help of a dust witch, that's a witch who can speak to spirits, a fairy godmother, a fallen knight, and also a demon-possessed chicken, they set out on an adventure to figure out how to get this done. This is also quite humor-filled, comedic, funny. I think I should have probably gone with funny. I don't know, anyway. And I wouldn't say super horror-filled, but it does have the vibes now and then. There's a couple of instances here and there that are a little bit scary, but nothing too bad in my personal opinion. But I flew through this. It was a super quick read and I think you'll find it charming as well. So Nettle Bone by T. Kingfisher. And that leaves us with 10 quick and easy reads for you to quickly go through if you're missing some books to reach your reading goals for 2022. So if you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Otherwise, I hope that this video was helpful to you if you are lacking some numbers on that counter, if you get what I mean. Of course, you can always go with graphic novels. They're usually very quick reads as well. But I don't know much about graphic novels. Maybe I should look into that for 2022, to be honest. Maybe I should make that a goal. That sounds like a fun goal. I'm gonna do it. But that's all I got for you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to hit the thumbs up. And if you're new here and you want to stick around for more videos like this, but also videos like readathons, TBR videos, wrap-up videos, bookish unboxings, and all the other booktube stuff, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button. But that is all I got for you guys today, so you can find the books linked in the description box if you're curious about them. I'm gonna go now, leave you to it. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Oh, you know you're beautiful, and it's like